Hello, I decided to make this video in order to help you execute a proper bidding strategy. You should already know the basics by now. Basically, you'll go to a job post, you'll see how many words they need translated or written. In this case, they need 2,500 words translated to from English to German. And what you'll do, you'll find a contractor that matches that job. For instance, I have Finn, and his per word rate is 1 cent, 0.01. So what you'll do is you'll take that rate, and actually you'll look at column F in order to see the charge to client per word. And it's going to be slightly more than their actual rate per word. However, if you do talk to a contractor, and you'll probably be able to do this in the future, talk to a contractor, and they'll tell you what rate they want. You'll enter that information, the rate per word, in column E, or you'll enter their hourly rate in column G. And when you enter that information, you'll get output to the right, and they'll tell you the exact amount that you should be charging to the client. So anyhow, for Finn, the rate per word is 0.01. That's 1 cent. So what you'll do, you'll look to the right in column F, and the result will be 0.012. And that's a little bit more than 1 cent per word. So you'll take that amount and you'll multiply it by the word count, which is 2,500 or 2,500. And that'll give you the bid that you should be placing for that particular project. However, that's the basics. However, there will be some cases where the basic calculations just won't work out for you, either because the client is not willing to pay that amount. Their budget might be just a little bit below what the bid would be normally. Sometimes you'll want to just cut a little bit off of that charge the client so that you can go ahead and place the bid. And other times their budgets will actually be a lot more, and in a case like that you might want to charge the client a little extra, since they'll be willing to pay extra, especially if you have other bidders bidding on the project and they're charging a lot more than what the normal charge to clients would be. And really, especially if the client is interviewing at a higher rate than what the normal charge would be, you'll want to charge a little bit more in that case. And I want to show you an example here. For this particular job, the hourly rate that they are willing to pay is between $3 and $7. And you can see here that the applicants, the average bid for the job is $7.27. And let me take one of the contractors as an example. Signorelli. Use him as an example of a low bid that you'll be able to raise in order to get a little bit extra, since the client is willing to pay a little bit more than what Signorelli would normally charge. So I'm going to look up his hourly rate. And you'll see here that his hourly rate is $3, and the charge to client in column H would be $3.47. But as you can see here, the client is willing to pay more. He's willing to pay up to $7. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the spreadsheet in order to calculate a new bid. I'm going to use $7 as the budget, $3.47 as the charge, and the average bid. You can see already right here that you have a new bid of $5.24. That calculation is based on certain adjustments that the spreadsheet made. I have a specific formula that makes the calculations and makes it easy for you to change the bid to a higher rate without making it too high, without making it too low. And let's see what happens when you add the average bid amount, which is slightly more than the budget. It's going to increase it slightly. And the bid will now be $5.77. And let's say, what if the client was already interviewing and it was showing up the average interview amount? That would be more important than either the average bid or the budget, because the interview amount, what you're doing is basically you're trying to predict what amount the client will be willing to pay. And the first thing you'll want to look at in order to predict what the client will be willing to pay is the actual amount that he's interviewing at. If you don't have the interview information, then usually you'll go to the average bid, and that'll be a good indication. Based on what everybody else is bidding, the client wouldn't have much choice or much room to work with. If everybody's bidding around $7.27, if the client is really intent on making higher, then he will probably hire it around this rate, or he might hire lower, but you never know. He might, since this is the average rate, he might go ahead and hire at the average rate. So that's the second thing that you'll look at. If you don't have an average bid or average interview or an average bid, then you'll have to base your bid strictly on the budget. So that's advanced bidding. That's beyond the basics that I described to you before, where you just look at the budget. So let me enter that amount. As you can see, if you just base it on the budget, it'll be $5.24. If you base it on the average bid, it'll be $5.77. But let's say that the client is interviewing below both the average bid and the budget. Let's say that the client is going to be interviewing at $5.24 per hour. And they'll make the adjustment, because since the average bid is the most important factor, it'll take that information and it'll make a calculation based on that information instead, and it'll ignore the average bid. As you see, you can remove that, and they'll actually give you a new amount. Bid factors in between the budget and the interview amount, and it also takes into account the original charge. So it might be a good idea to include the budget if they have a budget set. A lot of times on hourly jobs, they won't even mention the budget. They'll just let the bidders have at it, and they'll see what the results are. But in this case, they have a budget, so I'll leave the 7 in. And what I'll get is $5.24. If they were interviewing at a higher rate, say higher than the actual budget, because sometimes clients will actually interview it higher than the budget amount because maybe they originally had a price in mind, but after they saw the bids coming in, maybe they figured that it was unrealistic price, or that they saw some very good contractors who charged more than they expected, and so they changed their mind and they're willing to interview at a higher amount. So that's another reason why it's important to consider average interview amount. In this case, let's enter $10, and you can see that the bid is now higher than the budget. Alright, and that gives a good example of how the bid can be adjusted if the charge is less than the budget. Another example is if the client is willing to pay just a little bit under what the actual or the normal bid amount would be. So let me see if I can find another contractor that fits that description. See, it's a job for resume, so let me look up some contractors that are good with resumes. Okay, Harmain, this person, their bid is just a little bit over the amount that the client wants to pay. Their regular rate is $7.14, and the charge the client here would be $8.25. So let me take that in consideration. Enter $8.25 into the charge amount. And as you can see, it made the adjustment. It's now saying that the bid can be $6.19. And this is pretty much based on a series of calculations that I do. Of course, you don't want to go too far below what the contractor would normally want to charge, but the calculations will take care of that. See, if the charge would normally be something like $12.25, that would be too far. That would be too large of an adjustment. So the spreadsheet would suggest that you don't make a bid. However, since it is just a little bit above the budget, I have the calculation set up so that it would output a lower bid that would have a high chance of being acceptable to the contractor, yet it would also fit within the budget of the client as well. Let's see what happens when I add the average bid amount. Stays the same, so the average bid amount doesn't have an effect there. But if the average bid amount was $6, it would suggest that don't make a bid. But if the average bid was higher, the amount that was put in originally, it might be a bit more reasonable to take the contractor's normal bid and reduce that amount just slightly. because what you're trying to do here is you're trying to enter, in a case where you do have an average bid displayed. What you're trying to do is you're trying to enter a bid that is competitive with the budget and also competitive with the average bid amount, but also takes in consideration for the regular charge that the contractor would prefer. So if the average bid is too low, then you're not going to be able to set a bid that is competitive with the average bid amount, yet it still takes into consideration the regular amount that the contractor would regularly work with. In this case, you might have to go too low. You might have to go down to $5 in order to compete with the average bid amount. But I wouldn't want to do that because the regular charge is $8. That's just shaving off a bit too much off of their regular charge, and they might not be happy with that.